Hello and welcome to Magic by Design. We went on an expedition deep into the jungles of the exotic subcontinent of India when we watched Disney's 19th animated feature, The Jungle Book, this week. If this is your first time joining us, first of all, welcome. It's great to have you with us. Magic by Design is a podcast in which we are aiming to watch and review every Disney animated feature film. Each week we break down a movie from the Disney canon in an attempt to discover the secrets behind the magic. But before we embrace our inner man cubs, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ken, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host / brother / man cub, Garrett. Garrett, how are you?
Mowgli sucks.
That's your main takeaway from The Jungle Book?
Get straight into it. Mowgli is a jerk. He's just a turd. He's annoying. He's entitled. He never learns. He is the most, inherently trusting person in the world to people he absolutely should not trust. And people, again, he has already learned not to trust. He's like, Kaa, oh, you sang a song about how you should trust. And fair enough, Kaa does kind of hypnotise people, so that also helps. But he also just trusts. In fairness,
the second time he tried not to.
Yes. Mowgli. What an asshole. What a jerk. What a turd Mowgli is. I wanted to see Mowgli die. Literally, I said to you, 10 minutes into the film, it's like, Bagheera, no one will know if you eat him. No one will know. You could just say he got swept away by a river or something. It's fine. You don't have to ruin your life for this dumbass entitled jerk.
Bagheera, he's an orphan.
I don't care. Raised by wolves.
Wolves are known to be jerks, Care.
Are they?
Yeah.
I like the weird thing in this film where there's the one bad guy, it's a tiger. He's like, rawr, I'm an angry tiger. And it's like, the Black Panther is a good guy and the wolves are good guys, but it's like, oh, the tiger. He's the jerk. We can't have a nice tiger. But the Black Panther is fine. The Black Panther doesn't want to eat children at all.
Care, as we've learned in recent films, Disney has established a hierarchy of animals. Mm-hmm. And obviously in animal world, or in India, at least in animal world in Disney, tigers are jerks.
Yes, just like Mowgli. Mowgli should be able to relate. Maybe that's why Mowgli was friends with Shere Khan for a while. This film, the premise of this film is Mowgli goes on a magical adventure through the jungle and makes lots of friends, and those friends help him fight the evil tiger at the end of the film. And the single thing I don't buy about this film is Mowgli's a jerk. Nobody should be friends with Mowgli. He's a jerk, Ken. Don't you come on here defending Mowgli.
I have some points about Mowgli, Gar, but if we stop here, this will be a very short podcast.
Also, Ken, this is even worse. I don't think there's ever been a Kingdom Hearts Jungle Book tie-in.
Because of Mowgli?
Maybe it's because of Mowgli. Maybe the creators at Square Enix are the same as me, and they're like, Mowgli, what a jerk. We're not going to put him in any games.
Apparently, it's supposed to be pronounced Mowgli.
Mowgli? But that's not how they say it in the film.
Yeah, but that's because they were wrong.
That's how Rudyard Kipling intended it to be pronounced, did it?
Apparently.
Well, he put no pronunciation guide into the book, so you can say, that's the thing. Any names that are just in text, it's like, here's that, this is meant to be pronounced. Nah. It's like, if there's no proven audible form of what it's meant to be sound, like, it's Final Fantasy names was the one that I was always like dumb with. It's like Bahamut. It's like, no, it's Bahamut or Shiva. Actually, no, these are a lot of these are named after gods or whatnot.
I would have hoped that Kipling did his research though and picked a name from the actual culture. Yeah.
Kipling do that. Well, he lived there, so maybe
he was born there. Yeah, born in Bombay. For me, I knew the major beats of the film. I've definitely seen it, especially the songs, but I haven't seen it in many, many years. This one holds a very fond spot in many a Disney fan's heart, and I remember why. It's got everything: memorable characters, iconic songs. It's got a lot of laughs. Everything that people want from a Disney film.
It might be because I don't think I've ever seen this film, but I've seen the remake. The live action remake, which is where I know the plot beats from. But I know who Baloo is, I know who Shere Khan is, I know who Kaa is, I know who Mowgli is. So those characters have transcended this film.
You didn't know who Bagheera was?
I know, I said I knew who Bagheera was. Maybe I did. Did I not list him?
You did not list him.
But I knew who Bagheera was. I knew the characters of it, and more importantly, I knew the songs for this film. Because I think I'm gonna start out with a hot take, Ken, to see if you agree. This has the best music of any Disney film so far.
Oh yeah, hands down.
These we'll talk about some of the undertones if I want to be like you'll be damned if it's not a catchy song.
It's a toe tapper. This is the second film for the Sherman brothers, and they've really found their stride after testing the waters in Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, Bare Bare Necessities is the best song in Disney history to this point. That song is a banger.
Like, that's sold records.
And you know they know it's a banger, because there's like 2 different reprises of it.
I think there's 3 at least.
So like they're like, this is a good song, and we're going to put this into the film a couple of times.
Yeah, I like, normally we don't only touch on the songs, and there's actually quite a lot to talk about this week, so that's
mostly because the songs aren't very, like, again, it passes the like, and I was like, look for the Bare Necessity. I can sing the whole song. I can sing the whole Bare Necessity song. And like, I can sing I Want to Be Like You, and even like Trust in Me, underrated song. So like the songs in this film are far, like, there's barely even one song in most of the other films I like. Never mind 3 at the very least that I think are pretty good. Even the frickin' Vulture song is pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't even remember the Vulture song.
No, and I still don't remember it now, so it's not great. But
yeah, that was made as a vehicle for someone else, but then they didn't do it. We'll get to it later.
Yeah, so in terms of this film, I think it's pretty loosely plotted, but it's kind of meant to be.
Yeah.
But memorable characters, memorable music. And as I said, I didn't see this. This is the first time I've watched this film, and I do know the beats because I saw the live action remake. But even watching the live action remake, it's like, oh, that's the plot of The Jungle Book. I've never actually seen the film, but the songs and the characters have transcended the film to a degree that they've seeped into culture and seeped into my dumbass brain. So I assume they've seeped into others. So yeah, Jungle Book. It's pretty good.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Bye. Garrett, we're now a third of the way through our watch and review of the existing theatrically released Disney animated features.
Number 19.
Yeah, here we are. This film is notable for being the last animated feature that Walt Disney worked on in his lifetime.
Well, is it the last one he had? I assume it's not the last one he had input to though.
No, it is, yeah.
But like, what came after The Jungle Book? What's next?
The Aristocats.
So you're saying he had absolutely no input into the Aristocats whatsoever?
Apparently not.
So like, there wasn't even like a development phase or an idea that
possibly
he
might have commissioned it, but
something like that.
No,
Like, it's the first one that was made entirely after he had died. Surely he probably had some input into Aristocats, like some kind of like, maybe we should do this one.
Yeah, possibly that, but it's not on record as having him actually work on it, though.
Well, because he was dead, of course he didn't work on it. He died during the production of this one.
Yeah.
Like, I know he didn't work on production of the Aristocats, but I'd imagine, at least in concept phase, it was probably kicking about before he died. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe not. Because, like, you know, the way a lot of these films have been kicked about long before they were ever made. Yeah. So I assume many of them, or at least in the concept phase before he passed away. But
that's what I was about to say. A lot of the films were bought years earlier and they were kicked around and talked about and, you know, moved around in terms of the order. But yeah, around this time, as we talked about, Disney wasn't prioritizing animation and they were slowing down production to one every 3 or 4 years. So it's conceivable that he had nothing to do with the Aristocats.
That's true. This, of course, is another work of English fiction that they're adapting. Clearly, again, Americans have made no good culture.
It shows again Walt's fascination with British culture.
Yes, well, this is Indian culture, I guess. Well, jungle culture.
Indian culture through the lens of a British monarchy.
A white guy, yeah.
After the disappointing reaction to Sword in the Stone, Walt Disney decided to become more involved in the story than he had in the previous 2 films. His nephew, Roy E. Disney, who eventually ran the company, said that he certainly influenced everything about it with The Jungle Book. He obviously got hooked on the jungle and the characters that lived there. But apparently Disney infamously disliked the dark direction the film was taking. So originally the writer, who was Bill Peet, who wrote a lot of the previous films we've talked about recently, he took an approach that was close to the book, but apparently he threw out the whole film after several months of pre-production and started over. Something that kind of pinged in my mind earlier, a lot of people, the way they talk about Walt Disney's death is that it was unexpected and it was quick, and apparently it was in the end. But I get the feeling that, you know, this kind of Walt getting back into the animation side out of the blue and getting hands-on, maybe he knew more about his health than he let on.
He wanted to have one last like animated jaunt before he passed away.
Yeah, so I reckon maybe he had an idea of how his health was progressing and he just didn't tell anybody.
He was like, this Jungle Book film is depressing. I'm sad already because I'm unwell. Please make a happy jaunt through a jungle where there's fun songs.
Yeah, pretty much. But I just feel like maybe, like, because, you know, people, it's a kind of a thing back in the 60s, like, oh, this guy just kind of died suddenly, this famous actor. But like, I reckon these people were sick for a while.
Well, yeah, and like we had we talked about there is a Black Panther in this film, so it all ties together. But Chadwick Boseman is the example of that. Is the guy no one knew was unwell. I think a lot of his like colleagues didn't even know he was unwell.
Disney apparently had no idea, which I was shocked about.
So like, Yeah, so the idea that, these people live private lives. We have people that think that we have some entitlement to the details of their private lives, and we do not. It's like, just that these people are famous and just that they are successful and they make money does not mean we have an entitlement to every single aspect of their lives. So there's many people who struggle with this privately, and that's the decision they take. Even though, Chadwick Boseman revealed that he was unwell before he actually passed, there would have been like a widespread public support. He would have gotten a ton of, support, but he chose not to. That's his choice.
And it was the opposite, in fact, due to the fact that he chose not to reveal it, because when pictures came out of him looking, gaunt and thinner, there was, some unsavory comments.
People were jerks.
Yeah.
People on the internet were jerks about it.
The worst of which was Crack Panther.
Which is, people are the worst, and they make bad jokes about people being unwell, and then that person dies, and don't they feel like shit? Probably not, because they're monsters.
But there was a very good lesson to be learned there about, as you said, we don't know what's going on in people's private lives, and we don't have an entitlement to know. So, be kinder, even though they're celebrities. So people treat like celebrities like they're not real people sometimes. And I know that's a bit of a cliche, but it's true.
Yes, millions of dollars pad your feelings, apparently. You don't have to, people they should have thicker skin. And if you're going to put yourself in the public space, and especially if you make art, you do need a thick skin if you're going to make art. Otherwise, you'll be a gotten-to mess and never live a happy life where you're constantly trying to fulfill other people's needs. You do need somewhat of a thick skin if you're going to make something and put it out in the world. Again, if you're relating it back to me, because of course I'm the most important person in the universe, I think everything I ever do is bad. So nobody can ever say anything that hurts me.
You can't hurt me if I hurt myself.
Yeah, but celebrities are people. You don't have entitlement to their lives, and people die. People, what we think of dying suddenly may well have been ill for quite some time and just opted not to tell us.
Yeah.
And that's entirely their choice.
It's a fair point. R.I.P. to Chadwick Boseman. He seemed like a nice man. Everyone, it's a bit crass in Hollywood. Everyone has a story. Everyone on Instagram who's like any minor celebrity that ever met him has their picture up of him. But from what I heard, he seems like a really nice fella.
Seems like and he was a very important actor in our time. Yes. In many different ways.
The Jungle Book was released in October 1967 after Walt Disney's death, to a very positive reception with acclaim for its soundtrack, of course.
If the frickin' people, if the critics in the 60s were like, the music wasn't very good, I would have literally tried to invent time travel to punch them in the face.
They got it this time, Gar, don't worry. At the time, it was the most successful animated film ever made.
I can kind of see why they stopped being ambitious. Because, they hit on this formula, a few catchy beats, a happy, jaunty story through a jungle, massive success, tons of money, cheaper.
The animation looks fine.
Yeah, the animation looks fine. At no point in this film would you go, oh, that looks nice. It looks fine. It's not like it looks awful, but I don't think at any point did I even think about, oh, that's a lovely, really beautifully animated scene. Everything just it's an animated film. It looks perfectly pleasant, but not particularly memorable or remarkable. I just created rememberable is now what's the thing when neologism? Is that when you shove two words together?
I don't know.
I think that's a neologism when you shove two words, like brunch is a neologism when you push two words together. Or maybe that's just when you create new words. Either way, rememberable is remarkable and memorable put together. There you go. But yeah, the animation is perfectly fine. But I can kind of see where they're put a couple catchy songs in it, a nice little story about a guy walking through the woods with his monkey and with his bear and his Black Panther, and they meet some monkeys and they meet some elephants and they meet some vultures, and they all have a happy time, and the tiger tries to kill them and they fight the tiger and they win, and they sing the happy song and they go away happy, and we make tons of money. I can see why they it works, it's a perfectly good film. It's not nearly as ambitious or artistically interesting probably as say a Sleeping Beauty is, but it's a fun, enjoyable time, and it, as you just said, made a ton of money.
This would be somewhat of a watershed moment for Disney, because this was a very successful movie, the most successful animated movie at the time, as I said. But this kind of starts to show the signs of a period of decline. So they've had some successful movies after this. Aristocats was successful, The Rescuers, and The Great Mouse Detective, but they wouldn't have a hit on this level until 1989 with The Little Mermaid. So, I think we've seen this in the last few episodes. They weren't focusing on animation anymore, and, there wasn't the spirit in it, especially after Walt died.
And so the Renaissance is over. Is this the end of the Renaissance, Ken?
I would say it's possibly the start of some people might count the Aristocats, but I would say this is the last major film that stood the test of time that would have been in the initial Disney Renaissance period before they had their second wave. So the term second wave has been poisoned now.
Yeah, it's portmanteau is the word I was looking for, by the way. Portmanteau.
Oh.
Neologism is coining a new word, which I guess technically a lot of portmanteaus would also be neologisms, but portmanteau is when you combine two words, and a neologism is when you create a new word. So there you go. But yes, Renaissance is over. Disney is dead. We're never going to have a good film again. This is the last good one, and we're all sad.
You touched on the animation there, Gar. For me, I know like the animation looked fine and it fits with that sketchy 1960s style and like it has a 1960s sensibility to it, but I felt like it was a bit of a shame that The Jungle Book wasn't made using a more sophisticated approach.
Like when you think of the direct comparison is Bambi. Another film set in a jungle.
I had that here, Sleeping Beauty and Bambi.
Like Bambi is like the direct comparison. Like Bambi is what this film could have looked like. And because like Bambi was 20 years old at this stage.
Yeah.
So like when you think of 20 years of technological advancements, this should look much better than Bambi, and it doesn't. So when you ask yourself why is that, you know why that's the case, because they're making these more cheaply. They're churning these out. They're not putting as much money into the animation. But when you think about, say, compare a film in the 90s to a film now, or a film from 2000 to a film now, you should see that leap in animation quality, and you do. Like if you watch Toy Story versus this, like Toy Story still looks very good, but then when you watch Toy Story 4 and you see like the detail in the animation with
you can see the age of the toys and scratches.
What, like 26 years of animation development between those two films. Like you see that jump. You watch this and compare it to Bambi, and it's worse. And like I said, you know why that's the case, but it is quite disappointing because you know what this film could look like if they were actually still investing in the animation.
And I think if they had, it would have put it into the realm of true classic. Like it's a memorable movie and people love it, but I think it would have been a classic.
Like the animation is perfectly serviceable. Like it gets the job done, but it really doesn't try to be anything more than that.
Despite the scruffy animation style, I thought the movements and expressions of Mowgli, I'm going to say it now,
Mowgli,
are thoughtful in their childlike nature. Do you know the way he kind of slumps around like a petulant child, and his faces are kind of like a child who you'd recognise? I thought that was really good. The only thing was, I thought he looked a lot like Arthur from the last film.
Arthur? Who's Arthur?
Arthur is the kid who pulls the sword from the stone.
Oh yeah, no, I don't see it.
The hair and some of the faces.
No, like not at all. They're not even remotely similar. The thing I thought was very funny, there's scenes where Mowgli runs in this film and he looks very weird. Yeah,
like a wacky waving inflatable tube man.
Yes, like the animation of him running is just like
saying that as well, Baloo and Shere Khan are great examples of effective anthropomorphism. I had to look up that word yesterday, I didn't know what it was. Yes. I knew anthropomorphic, but I had to, how do you like define that as a term? So we're seeing here a further solidification of that Disney style in terms of anthropomorphizing animals. So it is significant in that sense. We saw it in obviously Bambi, that was, as you say, the benchmark for the animal style. You're seeing the emergence of a trend of designing characters around the traits of the actors who perform the voices. So like Baloo very much looks like the actor that performed him, and he has a range of motion and expression that, like, despite being a bear, he just makes him really relatable.
How do you think they actually, like, because they didn't do motion capture in this era, and like when you see like someone looking and acting and moving like a character that are like a person in real life, that's usually done via motion capture these days. But back then, do you think they got them into the studio, saw the performance? They're usually probably animating to the performance for the sake of lip sync. So they saw the performance, it's like, oh, look at the expressiveness in his face, we want to capture that in the animation. Yeah,
because that came first. And normally there's stills from it or footage from the recording session. So I imagine the animators at least took their cue partially from that.
Or maybe they did some like table reads kind of things, and like they monitored them, I don't know, to get that kind of expressiveness. Or maybe they're really good animators, which they are really good animators, and they can do that without the need for like significant reference material.
Yeah, a lot of my notes here actually center around the movement. Shere Khan's movement is very impressive. You get a feeling of his size as well. Do you know when he kind of turns? Like the poses are really good. Some of the sequences where Bagheera is running through the trees are really nice, really fluidly done. So there was some effort into the animation here, not so much in the visual style, but in terms of the actual movement and the study of the animals was really great.
Can black tigers actually run through Black Panthers run through trees like that?
We don't know, Gar.
Like, that would be very impressive. Running across treetops, not falling. I'd definitely fall.
Well, they're cats. Cats are very agile and have good balance.
That's true, and they have claws, so they can dig their claws into the branches and maintain balance.
I also found the movement of Kaa very mesmerizing, and it's just kind of fluid, and he uses his, like, obviously he's a snake, so he has no limbs, but he uses his girth and length to create extension of limbs.
How long is Cal? Because like I pointed this out while we were watching. There's a period.
Side note, voiced by Sterling Holloway, who is Winnie the Pooh.
Winnie the Pooh, which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. It's like real sinister, murderous Pooh. It's like, oh, Pooh, what happened to you? But there's a point toward the end of the film where like you can see his head, then he has his body wrapped around Mowgli, and then I think it's Shere Khan pulls in his tail. Is it Shere Khan?
Shere Khan, yeah.
Yeah, Shere Khan pulls in his tail below the tree. It's like, how long is this snake? And how has he constructed himself so that he has the tail still dangling while he has the tail wrapped around somebody? I question the continuity there, Ken. I don't think that's possible.
He must be conservatively 25 feet.
Yeah, probably longer. God, we're a long snake. Snakes are terrible. You shouldn't trust snakes. Snake. Bad snake.
I had a dream about snakes last night after this movie. I don't like snakes.
Oh, what was the dream?
I don't know. Someone threw a snake at me or something. I don't like snakes.
Ken had a full snakes on a plane dream.
I don't see why you'd have it as a pet.
Have you ever had a snake around your neck?
No. You have.
Twice.
How did it feel?
It's scary. I don't want to trust. I don't trust. People are like, oh, it won't snap your neck. It's like, how do you know?
That's their instinct. They
Maybe
want to
I'd snap its neck if I were it.
It's kill or be killed.
Yeah, that snake will murder me. Snakes are terrifying. Scary snake.
As we said before, Gar, this is based on the 1984 book of the same name by Rudyard Kipling, who just
1984. It was written 20 years after the film came out.
1894.
Fantastic! That's a miracle. Did Walt time travel? I'm going to the future to get the Jungle Book. I'm going to do a whole bit. Ken's very upset that I'm doing a whole bit on him misspeaking. And he can't edit it out now. He can't fix it because I've done a whole like 30 seconds on Ken accidentally pushing the date out 100 years. Ken's not.
Well, Gar, I saw Tenet yesterday, so maybe I was thinking about time travel.
Oh, spoilers.
Oh yeah, it's about time travel.
I know, but still.
Basically, Doctor Who meets James Bond.
Chris Nolan would probably love to make an episode of Doctor Who.
He would.
He should.
Rudyard Kipling reminds me of cakes. Are the cakes named after him?
Kipling cakes? Probably not. Maybe he's related to the people who made cakes.
I had to ask you, as we do every week, have you read the book?
No. It's a very busy weekend, sorry.
I remember Kellogg's Cornflakes were giving away little books when we were younger, like abridged versions, not the full thing, and they gave away the Jungle Book. I had a copy of it, and I read that. I don't remember anything about it. Kipling himself was born in Bombay, so he's technically Indian. He was also quite the racist, as we can guess. He believed that the native Indians were savages who needed to be subjugated. The Jungle Book has been dismissed as imperialist propaganda. Mm-hmm. Actually, the word I read in one review was garbage in more recent times.
You see, this is interesting because like the thing people always point to in this film is the song "I Want to Be Like You," or someone who's clearly characterized as a black man is singing "I Want to Be Like You," and the idea is there's racial subtext there that he wants to be like the white man, basically, and that's like a much more insidious form of race. Like you watch Peter Pan, and that puts the racism up front. It doesn't even hide it, and I think that the racism in this film is like it's the kind of dog whistling insidious racism that has really polluted our culture in the last like 20 years, where it's like it's not up front, it's not like in your face, but it's there, and it's trying to communicate that to people in a way that's probably more sinister, and as I said, it's more insidious. It's like the upfront racism, like as I said, you can watch Peter Pan and go, oh, you know, whereas like the racism in this film is the kind of racism that will just worm its way into like people's brains on a cultural level, and
that's especially troubling when this is aimed at children.
Yeah, so people will watch this and like they might not even understand the way the racism is worming its way into their brains, and that's, as I said, that's the much scarier form of racism. The upfront racism, which is like like I said, Peter Pan is the example where it's just like this is just awful, and like anybody who's like I'm not racist will watch that and go, oh, that's racist. Whereas the I'm not racist people who are actually racist might just watch this film and be like, oh yeah.
I had this in a later note, but I'm going to bring it up now since you're talking about it. They wanted Louis Armstrong for King Louis, and they couldn't get him, so they cast an Italian-American, Louis Prima, instead.
Well, they're like, it has to be somebody named Louis.
Yeah, it has to be Louis, so he got the job. Well, it wasn't so much that they couldn't get him, but they decided not to get him in the end, because this was designed at avoiding a controversy of casting a black man as a monkey.
Yes, something says you cast a black man as a white man as a monkey, but the monkey is clearly meant to be like a jive talking black man singing a song "How I Want to Be Like You." And Louis, both in his voice that he chose for the movie and his singing, mimics Louis Armstrong. Oh yeah, like it literally rips it out. It's a sound alike. It's very strange, and it's like it's not the only one in this film, as you're going to be talking about with the vultures, which is a very weird phenomenon in this film. Yeah, Prima called it one of the highlights of his career. It's a damn cat. That's the problem. It's a damn catchy song. It's one of those
ones that it's an earworm for sure.
It's so upsettingly catchy, and it's like when you realize the undertones that run through it, it's like, God damn it, this is such a, I was going to say good piece of racism, but you know what I mean. It's just one of those.
It's one that it's hard to separate the art from the meaning.
It's it's one of those pieces of racism that's just like it's the worst. It's so catchy.
Modern critics have accused the film of being racist for naming the character after Armstrong and having him sing minstrel songs about wanting to get civilized. Yeah. So are you aware about the minstrel culture?
No.
In America, around the vaudeville days, like you had white people playing black people singing songs about how they're so, uncivilized and how they want to be civilized in blackface. But you also had black people who, in order to assimilate and make a living, sold themselves out by acting like, uncivilized Neanderthals singing songs about how they wanted to be white men, basically.
Why is the world bad? Just like, why is the world so bad?
So there are very troubling elements in this film, which is maybe another reason why it's held back from being a true classic, but because it has aged.
The racism.
Poorly.
This film may contain outdated cultural depictions. Thanks, Disney+.
The early versions of both the screenplay and the soundtrack follow Kipling's story more closely, with dramatic, dark, sinister tone, as we said, which Disney did not like, and he did not want in his family film, leading to writer Bill Peet and composer Terry Gilkyson.
Gilkyson, is he from Scandinavia?
I don't know. It's Gilkyson. They were replaced. Pete left the studio shortly after they had he was like, changed the film, and he was like, no. And they had a drag-out brawl verbally, and he got canned.
I'm pretty sure only Walt Disney. Brawl is probably a generous term. It's like, change it. No, you're fired.
Yeah. Get out. We mentioned the Vultures, Gar. Disney initially wanted the Vulture characters to be voiced by the Beatles, but they didn't leave time in their schedules to record the dialogue, and John Lennon opposed the idea, so they didn't do it.
So instead they just got people that sounded like John Lennon and gave them a John Lennon haircut and had them do what is actually kind of like a vaguely Beatles sounding song.
Yeah.
And
except in a barbershop manner.
Yeah, it's like the Beatles put through a barbershop quartet. It's a little strange. Yeah. But yeah, it's really funny how like they obviously wrote that part for the Beatles and then the Beatles didn't do it. So they're just like, well, we'll just get someone to sound like the Beatles. It's the same thing with Louis Armstrong. It's like they wrote that part for Louis Armstrong, didn't get Louis Armstrong to do it, but still just got someone to sing like Louis Armstrong would. And it's like the same thing with the Beatles. It's like literally they're just doing Beatles impressions with Beatles haircuts.
But there was a range of accents there because I could only discern one that had a really moppy haircut that did sound like John Lennon, but the rest of them I heard...
There was like a Paul McCartney impression in there too.
Kind of, but then I heard Birmingham in some places. I heard a bit of London in there.
Yeah, but they're meant to be the Beatles, and it's quite funny to watch it in retrospect and being like, they're not the Beatles, but they was obviously written as the Beatles.
One last note on King Louis here that I thought was interesting. He was not in the original script as he appears in the film. A similar darker character was originally envisioned who enslaves Mowgli in order to obtain the secret of man's fire. The reason this is interesting is, obviously that's much darker and less comedic, but it actually more closely mirrors the characterization of King Louis in the 2016 remake.
Yeah, a lot more sinister. Burns his temple down. Good fun. I like the way Mowgli's like a dumb ass. He's like, I don't know how to make fire. He's like, you do. You're a man. Don't you try and fool me.
Give me the fire.
Where's my fire?
Is it in your, what's that thing? His diaper?
Is it a diaper? I guess it is a diaper.
It's basically a diaper.
It's a nappy. You're not American. Say nappy.
Sorry, nappy.
Yeah, there you go. Diaper.
You're a diaper.
What do you think? Trunk and sidewalk?
I used to say trunk when I was young.
Oh, it's a boot.
What's
that all about?
What are you all about?
I wonder if Canadians say boot or trunk. I work with Canadians, I should ask.
They probably say trunk.
But they're you see, Canadians are weird in that they're actually the hybrid because there's some of the British... Know what I learned this week? The way, if you were to say, I'll beat you at 2:30, what would I be meaning, Ken?
2:30 in the afternoon?
Yes, but what does that mean?
2:30?
Yeah. I said, we'll be posting that at 2:30 on a work call this week, and they were like, 2:30 what? And it's like, 2:30. And it's like, 2:30 what? It's
they say 2:30.
2:30. It's like, they don't say like 1:30, 2:30, 3:30 to indicate half hours. And I was so confused by this. And like, they probably would have worked it out if I said like 4:30, or it's like, he means the time there, but like 2:30, they thought literally I meant HAVE space TO instead instead of TWO, and it caused a great deal. I did not know that was like a colloquialism that caused a great deal of confusion. There's a fun fact for you there, Ken.
The more you know.
So if you're ever on a work call with Americans, don't say the words have to. They will be very confused.
Have to what? It's like that. It's like one of those jokes where it goes in circles.
It's who's on base, yeah.
One note I had here, Gar, why are most of the animals Shakespearean actors? But actually it occurred to me when I was writing the podcast, India was part of the British Empire at that time, and in fairness, it was better than Disney attempting Indian accents.
It's true. And once again, the kids just do American accents. I do love that they don't even bother trying to find children with British accents. It's like the kids are American, everyone else is British. And Shere Khan is like, oh, no, I'm doing my biggest, threatening, sinister, Shakespearean accent. And then Mowgli's like, hey there, tiger, why can't we be friends?
Why can't we be friends? Sorry. Shere Khan actually feels like he has the early DNA of Scar.
Yeah, it's like Shere Khan is, I think, relatively underdeveloped in this film because like he is the villain of the film, but he really doesn't appear in it very much.
Yeah, he has one kind of tryst at the end where he goes after Mowgli, but it's very short.
Even like the third act, it's like we bring back the elephants and we introduce the vultures. It's like, and then Shere Khan shows up and has like a starring moment where he chases his tail for like 10 minutes and dies. He doesn't die, he runs away on fire, and probably burns the jungle down, though it does start raining immediately after. Like I thought what would happen is that he ran away with the flaming stick tied to his tail, and then it starts raining literally immediately after. So I thought he'd just pop straight back up. It's like, suckers, it's raining, I'm gonna eat you now.
Yeah, so in his head he thought that Mowgli could wield fire whenever he wants, and he was afraid to go back in case he killed him.
Maybe he can. Maybe Mowgli was lying to King Louis.
Possibly. As you said, Mowgli is kind of annoying.
Very annoying. Not even kind of.
Very annoying. It does hamper the story, but his journey drives the plot, but the joy comes from the interpersonal relationships and conflicts between the animals for me.
Yeah, so like, if you'd like to, I'm going to read my notes. My first note is Mowgli is an asshole. Then it cannot be overstated how much Mowgli sucks. And then my final note about Mowgli is I would not fight a tiger for Mowgli. These are the things I would not do for Mowgli.
Take him.
It's like, God, just go back to the human. You take him away. He's more trouble than he's worth. Yeah, I like Baloo. I like Bagheera. I like Baloo and Bagheera's dynamic, where like Bagheera has utter contempt for Baloo. Like when Baloo's like roaring at Mowgli, trying to teach him how to do a bear roar. Do bears roar? Cry, I guess. A bear cry? Would that be the better word for it? Bears don't really roar.
Growl?
They kind of moan. Bears do their little moan thing. That's a Bigfoot impression, Ken. You've been watching too much Finding Bigfoot. But like Bagheera thinks Mowgli's in trouble, and he sees Baloo. He's like, oh, that idiot oaf is with him. Oh, that's even worse than if you were in trouble. And there's a fun little back and forth between them. I enjoy it.
And they become buddies in the end and they go off together. Baloo, though, is seen at the start, as you said, as uneducated and riffraff. Clearly, bears are in a lower caste in India's jungles.
Yeah, and bullied by monkeys.
Yeah, so if by it looks like it goes tiger, panther, monkey,
elephants
bear.
are in there somewhere.
Elephants might be up closer to the top, I guess.
Yeah, because they patrol the jungle and keep the peace.
Yeah, that's another note I had here. What's with all the animal armies? Like, they're present in all British-based stories of Disney films.
Yeah, you gotta have your animal militia. It's keeping the peace in the jungle. I also like they're lazy as well. They're lazy. It's like, the child is missing, and the lead elephant is like, I don't care, until he's guilted into helping him by his wife, I think, and then he's horribly sexist toward her, because God forbid we don't have a little God-honest sexism in these films.
Yeah, there can't be a female leader of the pack here.
He is outraged at that idea. It's like, this be led by a woman? Oh!
There's a sequence with King Louis, as we said, and I had a note here, I can't believe Baloo's amazing disguise didn't fool King Louis and his minions.
It did, but it fell off.
Yeah.
It did work. People are like, oh, that's obviously a monkey.
A very, very big grey monkey?
Yeah.
One of the sequences I thought was very funny from a scripting point of view. Bagheera gives a very solemn eulogy for Baloo after he fights Shere Khan and looks like he's dead, even though he's alive, and we see him crying at his own funeral, and Bagheera is super mad when he finds out that he's not dead.
Yes, it's a very good, because it pays off that relationship between the two through the film. It's one of the few actual through lines through the film that Bagheera hates Baloo and thinks he's an idiot, but actually secretly likes Baloo, and when he dies he's sad and thinks he's a hero, but Baloo's actually alive, and then rubs it in Bagheera's face that he gave him this touching eulogy, and Bagheera is, of course, furious that Baloo heard his true feelings about him. It's like, I want to give me maybe the Jungle Book 2 is about Baloo and Bagheera. I don't know.
No, it's not.
Well, there you go. They messed that up. It should have been about Baloo and Bagheera.
The Jungle Book 2 is Mowgli runs away from the village and goes back, and Shere Khan tries more than ever to kill him.
Good.
Gar, we're getting towards the end of the story here. Mowgli, for the whole film, is dead set against going back to the man village until he instantly falls in love with the Indian girl from the village, who is British. She has a British accent. She sings like a British girl.
A very fancy British accent. She has a very posh singing voice.
So like he admonishes Ka for trying to kill him by mesmerizing him and hypnotizing him. Yeah. But she does the same thing with her brown eyes. She's a temptress, Ka, and she trapped Mowgli. Now she has him as a husband.
Human Ka. Human lady Ka.
Exactly. And it, like,
sings him into her web.
So the snake is evil, but she's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's gone back.
Ken is now like, all women are snakes. That's Ken's takeaway from this film.
Ken, don't twist my words.
That's what you just said.
Yeah, so in Indian culture, that means they're married now.
Yeah, and it's like the Disney trope where it's like, literally, he was walking toward the village and I said the words, before she even appeared on the screen, I was like, he's going to fall in love at one glance, isn't he? And you're like, yep, and he did. He fell in love at one glance and abandoned all his animal friends, who literally nearly died to protect him from this tiger because Mowgli is horny the second he sees a girl.
That's it. And the moral of the story is he should have died. Just let him die.
Should have let him die. And he's a jerk. And the typical Mowgli. He abandons somebody. Like, these people dragged his dumb ass through that jungle, stopped it from dying multiple times, taught him how to be a bear. Who doesn't want to know how to be a bear? That's obviously one of the most important life skills you could possibly learn. And then he abandons them. And he's just like, I just want to go see the village. And he sees a girl. It's like, bye! Peace out, suckers!
I'm married now. That's how it works.
Yes.
As you said, Garrett, the music is the major strength of this film. The Sherman Brothers are back for the second time in a row. But as we said, Gilkison was initially supposed to write songs, but then he got sacked. They composed 5 songs from the movie. For me, this is one of the most overtly musical films to date from Disney.
It's literally, we do a set piece and someone has a song.
Yeah.
Like, that's the structure of this film. And then we go to someone else and someone else sings their song.
It follows a musical theatre format. Entire sequences are centered around songs, as you said. And the movie moves from one song to another, so it doesn't really have much between that. Like, it has the very loose plot of the Jungle Book, which Disney was not really focused on, really. He just wanted the characters. But it's mostly to get from song to song.
Yeah, but it's like, and now Baloo has a song, and now King Louie has a song, and now Kaa does his song, and then the vultures do the song, and then the film is over. That's the structure of this film. And they're good songs. That's the difference. Like, that's really they're good songs. They're honestly, like, Bare Necessities, as I said, up until this point, best song in Disney history. And I don't even think it's close.
The Elephant March song is nice as well. Not so much the song, because there's not many words, but the tune to it gets into your... I find myself tapping my toe to that.
Ken would like to be in the Elephant March.
I would. It has that 60s jazz style to the score and the songs. Very effective. Surprisingly so, because it's set in India, so you think those two things would kind of jive against each other, but they don't. There is times when the score also attempts Indian sounding music, very unsuccessfully.
Does it? When was that?
At the beginning, at the end, there were some points, like it was kind of basically snake charmer music. So it's kind of a bit insensitive in that sense. Trust in Me, as you said earlier, I believe is an underrated song, especially people fell over it and under it in the 2016 remake when Scarlett Johansson sang it, but when Sterling Holloway sang it, nobody remembered it.
Nobody loves Winnie the Pooh. I will say, Gilkison did the beat for Bare Necessities, so one of his sole remaining piece that stayed in the film was actually pretty good. So there you go.
Yeah, speaking of the beat, Care, Trust in Me was originally intended for Mary Poppins under the name Land of Sand.
Land of Sand.
Exactly. Eventually, this was replaced by Jolly Holiday, and the melody was repurposed for Kaa's famous ditty.
I've never seen Mary Poppins.
You haven't? Have you seen the sequel?
No.
I thought you watched the sequel recently. I was like, why would you watch? No, that was Nicole, actually. Never mind.
Mary Poppins Returns.
So, I suppose to give my final thoughts on this film, I think this film's strength is also its major weakness. The film is mostly remembered for its songs. However, the whole film feels like it's just a series of sequences to set up for the next song. So there's not much meat in the connecting sequences. This may come from the book itself, though. It's very episodic and disjointed in nature. In fact, the Disney writers found it very hard to adapt. Of course, I really love the songs, as everyone does, and I think it succeeded in creating likable characters who generated plenty of comedy. But as a story, it just doesn't resonate with me for some reason. So if I would say the story or the film itself, I like it, don't love it. But as a musical, I absolutely adore it.
Like, it reminds me a lot of Alice in Wonderland, where like the film is basically a series of vignettes. Where it's like, and now he meets Baloo, and he sings a nice song. They have a little moment, and then he goes and meets the vultures, and they sing a nice song. They have a moment. He meets the elephants. They sing a nice song. They have a moment. Like, there's not much in the way of plot. Like, the plot of this film is Black Panther tries to get boy to village. Like, that's the story. And like, there's not much in the way of deep subtext. There's not much in the way of narrative meaning. There's not much in the way of story payoff. really that's just a framing for a little adventure where they pluck in some songs, everybody has a jolly good time, they beat the villain, and everyone goes home. And that's what this film is. And this film does that very well. And it's not the most ambitious in the film in the world, and it's not swinging for some like deep, really substantial meaning. It's the opposite of The Sword in the Stone, which is like, it's a kind of similar. It's a series of vignettes that try to get toward a deeper meaning, which it didn't get there in the end for me personally. But this is like a series of vignettes that has no deeper meaning. It's really just a framing device for some memorable characters, some good songs, and it does that well. The fact that it is not the most ambitious film in the world probably means it's not the best film in Disney canon, but there's some damn good songs in this film, and as I said, some actually memorable characters, which elevates it above a lot of the films we've covered. Like it's far above what I would call it, like the Dumbo and the Lady and the Tramp tier, which
it's definitely not a B movie, but it's not quite an A movie either. Which
are like the really like the perfectly fine but entirely forgettable. It's above that. It's actually quite memorable, so it has that going for it. And the music is just too good.
But it does feel as if they put the resources in terms of animation and storytelling into it. It could have been up there as a modern classic.
Yeah, like if you could imagine the animation effort put into Bambi, put into this world and this jungle and these characters,
and some of the more complex themes from the book.
Yeah, and add in the songs and happy times. It would have been really damn good. But as it is, it's just good. Very catchy songs. Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. Yeah, man!
You've been waiting to sing that all pod, haven't you?
Nicole's singing. I've upstaged Nicole.
Oh, spoilers, Gar. Talking about the legacy here, the film spawned a direct-to-video sequel and 2 live-action remakes in 1994 and 2016.
There was a 94 live-action remake?
Yeah, the 94 version had even less to do with the book than the original animated film. It starred Jason Scott Lee.
I'm going to look up the poster for this film.
You'll recognise it. It was a movie that we watched you'll recognise it. It was a film we watched in our childhood. It was on Saturday evenings when we were having our tea.
A live-action adaptation, 1994. Oh, it does ring a bell. Carrie Ewells.
It's not great.
Sam Neill. John Cleese. That's a solid cast.
Lena Headey, isn't it, as well?
Is she a small child?
Well, she wasn't that young then.
94?
She might have been in her teens.
Probably 20s, maybe? I don't know.
Speaking of the 2016 live-action remake, I think that's one of the better remakes to date from Disney.
The 94 film is it is a Disney film. All right.
Gar, I did my research, thank you.
I guess that book's out of copyright shortly at this stage.
Oh, for sure.
So,
but I was just saying before you.
I was busy reading Wikipedia pages. Yeah. Yes,
I really like the 2016. Well, quote live action remake. It's mostly animation except for the boy.
Yes, it's weird that they call these films live action when they're entirely remade, and it's just like it's a HD remaster. That's what I like to call these. They're HD remasters,
pretty much. But
I put them in video game terms.
Maybe because Bill Murray blew it out of the water as Baloo, but I just thought it was a nice adaptation.
Bill Murray was a very good Baloo. It looked. That you see, unlike this film, which was not visually stunning, that film was visually stunning, directed by Jon Favreau as well.
And it added some of the darker themes and tension there, and it just had a better package overall. And as you said, Jon Favreau is really good at directing epic movies.
So, yeah, like the Iron Man films.
So
Iron Man and Jungle Book.
As you said,
it's favorite films.
It's really just an animated film, so it fulfills the brief on what the Jungle Book could have been in its original take.
So you're saying that's the ideal form of the Jungle Book? It's better than the animated film?
I don't know. I think the songs...
Get out of here, Winnie the Pooh?
The songs translate better in the animated film, but it's still an improvement in some capacity. The characters appear in 2 Disney TV cartoon series, Tailspin 1991 and Jungle Cubs 1996, which followed the exploits of Baloo, Hattie, Bagheera, Louie, Kaa and Shere Khan when they were children.
I never watched Tailspin.
Never watched Tailspin?
No.
Yeah, maybe a bit young for that. What about Jungle Cubs? That was on TV.
I don't remember that. I do remember Tailspin, but I don't remember ever really watching it.
And as you said, Garrett, did not appear in Kingdom Hearts.
No, so far as I'm aware. There might be in some of the weird spin-off things, but so far as I'm aware, there is no major Jungle Book representation in any of the Kingdom Hearts games.
Disappointing note to end on, Garrett.
Yeah. It's a bummer.
Okay, man and woman cubs. That's nearly it for the show this week.
People cubs.
People cubs.
Cub kind.
Cub kind. You're being very politically correct, Gar. Our resident musical expert Nicole is coming up in just a few moments with a song from the movie. Be sure to stick around for that. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday, where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. There, you'll also find all our previous episodes if you're catching up or feel like revisiting an old favourite. Magic by Design is also on all your favourite social media platforms, except TikTok because we're too old. I've said this a lot in recent weeks, but it's worth
Ken just
repeating.
likes aging himself.
Yeah, I'm very mature.
Nah.
Yeah, right. We're doing a Disney podcast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magic by Design Pod, on Twitter at Magic Design Pod, and on Instagram at Magic by Design Pod.
There you go.
Very succinct. If you're a fan of the show, please do consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice, share the podcast on your socials, or recommend it to a fellow Disney lover.
Yes, all your friends. Tell your friends about us.
If you don't want us to have worries or strife, make it 5 stars.
Look for the 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice and you will be our friend. Yeah, man.
That's a great adaptation, Gar.
There you go. I'm going to sing a whole song.
You should write Disney music.
I should.
We'll be back next week at the same time, same place with Disney's 20th animated feature, The Aristocats. But until then, stay safe and remember, all you need in life is the bare necessities. Now then, Nicole is here to sing us out with the bare necessities from the Jungle Book. But before embracing her inner Baloo, she's going to get into the swing of things with some fun facts about the music of the film. Thanks for streaming in, and over to you, Nicole.
Hello, Disney buffs. It's your musical correspondent, Nicole, coming to you live from my bedroom. This week, we're going deep into the jungle with the Jungle Book. George Bruns returns to score this film. Interestingly, 2 pieces of music are reused for this movie from other Disney films. When Mowgli wakes up after escaping King Louie, this is one of the themes from Sleeping Beauty, and when Bagheera gives a eulogy to Baloo after thinking Shere Khan killed the bear, this is an organ piece from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The overture and Jungle Beat are also reused and taken from a piece originally composed for The Sword and the Stone. Long-time Disney collaborator Terry Gilkyson was employed to write the songs for the movie, but Walt deemed his compositions too dark, and instead gave the Sherman Brothers the project. They attended many storyline sessions and composed 7 songs which advanced the plot and didn't interrupt the flow of the story. The only song of Terry's to survive the cut was the upbeat tune Bare Necessities, a favourite of mine and our song this week. I hope you enjoy it. Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, or Mother Nature's recipes that brings the bare necessities of life. Wherever I wander, wherever I roam, I couldn't be fonder of my big home. The bees are buzzing in the tree to make some honey just for me. When you look under the rocks and plants and take a glance at their fancy ants and maybe try a few. The bare necessities of life will